Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. My name's Chloe Comby and I'm delighted to be here tonight with 4 brilliant young ambassadors who are going to introduce themselves. And I'm delighted to represent, I'm actually a trustee for The Mix, which is the UK's leading digital mental health service for the under 25, so it does fantastic work. And they're doing it in collaboration with Hollister, who've been extremely generous in hosting this and donating to it at their beautiful Regent Street store. And I think we're going to have some really interesting conversations tonight about the pandemic, once in a lifetime thing we've all been through together, coming out of it, what the future holds. I'm really excited to talk to these 4 lovely people. So first of all, I'm going to go and can you just introduce yourselves to the listeners and the audience?
Yeah, my name is Bobby and I'm a brand representative leader or brand representative rather, for Hollister in Stratford.
My name is Ayana. I'm a young ambassador at The Mix, but I also work on the helpline.
My name is Abby and I'm one of the young ambassadors for The Mix.
And my name is Summer and I'm also one of the young ambassadors for The Mix.
Brilliant. So I think the first thing we're going to do, because it might speak for everyone in the audience, is a very strange situation that we're coming out of this sort of 2-year, once in a lifetime pandemic. So in one word, or I'd like to be one word if possible, can you tell me how you are currently feeling, starting with Bobby?
Of course. Rehabilitating, probably.
Rehabilitating,
Yeah.
Lovely.
Honestly, just okay. That's
Okay, good. I think okay is probably summed up quite a lot of how people are feeling. Abby?
Positive?
Positive?
Yeah.
Lovely.
I'm feeling good.
You're feeling good?
Feeling good.
Okay, so I'm feeling really quite positive. So I think I'll go for something a bit more challenging. So I'm going to start with Summer this time. What did you find the most challenging aspect of lockdown?
I think definitely being alone and not being able to see your loved ones. That was definitely the hardest part, at least for me. I think learning to be alone and kind of that separation, I think was one of the hardest and challenging parts for me. Not being able to see my friends, not being able to go to school, kind of having to adjust to a new lifestyle was really difficult.
Oh,
so.
and were you living with your family, with parents?
Yeah, I was living with my family, but I just come out of my GCSEs, so I was like adjusting, and then I had to go to a new school, so it was kind of like not being able to see my friends. It was just such a strange new thing that you had to adjust to. So.
And completely out of the blue.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You've never done it before.
Exactly.
Abby, what was the hardest thing you found?
For me, I'd say like staying motivated to do my work because I was still in school. And I was like halfway through my A-levels, so we had a lot of work and our school was still like setting us work. But like finding that motivation to actually get out of bed, do my work, because usually you can go into school and you have teachers in real life giving you the work, getting you to do it in that time. But now it was like they're setting you this work and they're kind of like expecting you to do it. And trying to find that motivation or like finding the balance between doing work and just like chilling was really hard. Because I didn't have to like wake up at a certain time to get ready for school.
So that was also one of the high points.
Yeah, it was good, but then it also meant like right before online lessons was like 5 minutes to get ready for everything. And then like, you have to get, it was quite long as well though.
Do you think, was it harder to snap into that focus, going from, let's face it, alarm clock going, rolling out of bed, putting the Zoom camera on?
Yeah, because like I'd still want to have my breakfast and then the online lesson will also be going on. So I won't be like concentrating as much as well. So like it was hard for me to like, especially because you're in your room the whole time, you don't have that different like work environment. When I'm at school, it's like, yeah, I'm in the classroom, I'm doing work. But now it's like I'm sleeping and I'm doing my work in the same place. So it's kind of like you lose that motivation to like keep going. And sometimes it's like, obviously it was a really like uncertain time. We don't know if we were going back to school or like if we're doing exams and everything. So it was like, why am I trying to do this work right now if I'm not going to do the exams in the end? So it was also finding that motivation to keep going on.
So we're going to return to motivation and the exam thing. Brilliant. So we flip the script. What for you was the most positive, Ayana, part of lockdown? What did you enjoy about it?
I feel like I finally learned how to say no to going out because I'm actually such a people pleaser that if anyone asked me to do anything, I'd be like, yeah, sure, even though I really don't want to. And because in lockdown, like I actually got to spend time by myself for the first time like ever. And I'm way too sociable for my own good. So learning how to say no and actually just being able to like be by myself and like I started reading again, and ever since I downloaded TikTok, I stopped working and doing university, but I actually got back into reading and education, and I'm actually really surprised.
Okay, I'm going to pin you down on that. But what was a book you read in lockdown that you loved?
I read so many. The book I read was called Luster, and it was actually very inappropriate. I'm gonna be honest. My mum bought it for me because it was on the women's list.
Cool mum.
And
Cool
then
mum.
we got halfway through the book, and it cannot be said here. Very inappropriate things happened, and I was like, very interesting book, Mum. she asked me, she really wanted to know, because it was like her new thing that we were going to like get into reading together, and I was like, are we the Brady Bunch? Like, we're not going to get into reading together. And I read this book, and I just had to try and not look my mum in the eye and be like, well.
Did your mum read Luster?
No.
Okay.
She tried to, and then I was like, we're gonna stop you right there because this is not a family thing. Maybe you and your auntie book club can do that, but not you and your daughter.
Probably. So, Bobby, apart from slightly rude books, maybe including rude books, what did you enjoy about lockdown?
I mean, just being able to lie in, I think. Going to being in bed all day. I think that was the only highlight of actually being indoors all day and not having to go out. And just everyone threw around it's free time. Like, we've got so much free time, but it's not free time. We didn't have any free time. There was nothing to do. But the one positive that came out for me is that I could just spend all day in bed and not get shouted at.
Yeah.
Because that's just like, you've got nothing else to do.
It's sort of giving you an excuse almost.
It gave me an excuse to just stay in bed.
Do you think that was also maybe a negative though? Because that can also be a sign of perhaps more negative things.
If you want to flip it the other way around
Yeah.
and say it was negative, then I got nothing done.
Okay.
Because I was in bed. I lost all motivation. I wasn't eating because I was
Really?
in bed. Yeah, I lost a bit of weight during lockdown. And everyone was saying that they were eating a lot during lockdown.
I think people did one or the other, didn't they?
People did.
Yeah,
a lot of the people that I spoke to didn't stop ordering food. Good for them, but not for me. It was the complete other way around.
Oh, that's interesting.
I just spent most of my time in bed in my room.
Did you find it changed any of your eating habits, lockdown? Was there anything significant?
I think in some ways I'd say I did eat a lot better because I was at home and because my parents were feeding me rather than at school with like not much lunch with like the soggy pasta on a Wednesday. You know, I guess, but then also you kind of got into some binging phases because like you snack a lot and then, you know, you order a lot. But at least at the beginning I didn't order so much just because COVID was so big. But
of course.
Yeah.
Abby, what will you miss about lockdown?
What I miss? For me, a big thing was I used to FaceTime my friends a lot during lockdown. But like now I don't think we have all that time on our side. Like even when we were doing our work, like we'd FaceTime and like try to get through it. But like now obviously everyone's gone back to like doing stuff in real life. So that I miss. Other than that, I'd say also like Bobby said, like there was a lot of time to like sleep in and stuff. Now I don't have that. So yeah, I miss that as well. But yeah, that's probably what I miss the most.
Did you, Iona, discover any hidden talents in lockdown? You know, a bit of baking?
No, absolutely not. So many people are like, yeah, I started a small business. How? I slept like 8 hours a day. Like, how did you start this business during lockdown? Like, I did not change at all. I feel like I'm the same person, just slightly more well rested. Like, that was about it. You know, I finally caught up with all the sleep that I missed through all those years of higher education, you know, because I was in lockdown and I took a gap year and then I started university in coronavirus, which would not recommend. The short story was got COVID, went into lockdown, came home. But yeah, I definitely ate worse because I was learning how to cook in a uni halls during coronavirus. It was bad. It was real bad.
Okay, so I think what we can take from this, we were all very sleep deprived.
Yeah, very.
And we've made loneliness less taboo. So moving sort of forward a little bit, and thinking about now we're coming out of lockdown and how we're feeling about lockdown. So let's start with Abby. How are you feeling now we're moving out of lockdown? Do you feel like we have moved out of lockdown? Are we in this sort of Schrodinger's cat of both being in and out of lockdown? So what are your thoughts?
I feel like, I don't think we're like completely out of it, but obviously it's not the same. Like I'm obviously going out and stuff, but then there's obviously still rules and restrictions. And there's always changes. It's never like certain, like, oh, it's going to be like this forever. Like, I feel like there could be new restrictions like whenever possible.
Mm.
For me, because I like moved out for uni, it was very different because I felt like obviously I was socializing more and I was going out more. But I feel like I've also missed like the actual experience that it could have been if we had like, you know, no COVID or anything. And so I feel like we're not completely out of lockdown and we need to be like kind of aware of that. Some people do act like we're like completely out of it, but obviously with like new strains and everything, I think it's still like obviously an ongoing problem and we need to always like keep that in mind as well.
So, like, slightly different question. How are you feeling about this? Because it is altered the world, isn't it? I mean, irrespective of how much we might be told that everything is rushed to get back to, you know, the old, that we are in a sort of a new world. How do you feel about it? How are you feeling?
I think we're all in a new normal. Like, I think that's really where it is. I think everyone's adjusting to their own new normal. Like, I think what at least I've really recognised is the fact that everyone has their own comfortability with it and kind of learning, you know, what people are more comfortable with, mask, no mask, where are we at? Like, you know, even recently, my school just stopped wearing masks. We had masks in all lessons and everything. That only just stopped 2 weeks before. Like, so it's kind of a whole period of adjustment, I really think. And that word adjustment, I think, is really important to know, and learning kind of where everyone's comfortable with.
Has it changed? Do you feel like there's a contrast in lessons without masks and with masks? Do you feel that's changed the kind of character of lessons?
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, at least I'm an English literature student, so, you know, speaking and having discussion with masks, like it's obviously very different. You know, you have a lot more animated discussion when you can actually see someone else's face. So I say in that regard, definitely.
Brilliant. Bobby, how are you feeling? Because you're slightly different from the girls in that you're not in education. No. So you work at Hollister and you're also an actor, and
yes.
you've been doing production. So how are you finding this kind of new world as someone in work and
really taxing. I think it's just not what we're used to, and we have to get used to it because it is the new world. For me and before COVID, it was so easy to go up to people, as sort of actors are quite in general really touchy-feely people, huggy people, would go up to people, would hug everyone, would say hi, and going back into the room during COVID and during working with people that you have to be really intimate with and not being able to be intimate with them is really challenging.
Ayana, how about you? How are you finding this new world?
It's a lot, because I started university in coronavirus and I had a whole different idea of what university was going to be like, you know. Everyone spent years telling me how amazing their university experience was, and all I got was COVID. That was literally it. But I think I'm adjusting to what the world is going to look like and trying not to look back too much, and also to not be too scared but also be too frivolous. Like, I feel like it's really hard to find the balance right now, because it's like, lockdown's not over, but it isn't, and it's too much. Like, I don't know what to do. And especially because I go to university in Nottingham and it's a big student town, and that's a whole bubble in itself, because everyone just lives life that there's nothing wrong ever, as if even without coronavirus there aren't many things wrong with Nottingham and all the stuff going on. But yeah, I think I'm doing okay. I'm just adjusting, really.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? That there's been so much focus on this, and it's suddenly like, oh my God, there are other problems as well. Very briefly, like one word or one sentence, what do you prefer, Summer, about this new world, this post-COVID pandemic world? One thing you prefer?
I would say how much more open people have become.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Abby, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say for me, like, how much more important meeting up is now. Like, I feel like meeting up is more special now, because we we spent so long exactly like being on our own. Like, before that, it didn't seem as special, but now it's like, you know, meeting up with friends, like, we can do this now. Like, you know, make the most of it. Who knows how long it will last? Make the most of it, kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. No FOMO, more FOMO. Yes. What do you miss? What do you like most about this new
I
world?
think it's the same thing. I think how open people are about not being okay. Because I think it's really nice to hear people be like, you know what, like lockdown was bad. Like, I wasn't happy. Because usually something like you pretend you're okay because you don't want to seem weird or you don't want to let people know. But now it's totally okay not to be okay, and it feels so cliche. Like I feel like I'm in a movie, being like, it's okay to not be okay, but it's true.
Go on,
It
share,
really is.
share your expression. What?
Oh yeah, I was telling Chloe our housemate group chat is called vibing, not thriving, because we're not doing good, but we're not doing bad. We're actually just existing right now, and there's no other word for other than vibing. We're literally just doing okay.
I like that, vibing, not thriving. I think that sums it up. Bobby?
This probably sounds like I'm not saying that anyone's dirty, but how clean the world has become. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, the amount of people that have said like, oh, I haven't like been ill for like 2.5 years. I'm like, yeah, that's because you're washing your hands. And but it is because the people have
They're more aware.
respected everyone else's awareness and personal space, and the fact that even though the world is massively populated, that you still now feel like you've got a bubble again, and especially living in London and living in big cities, that it does feel really cramped at times, and the underground, and I know that's still an issue in itself, but
It's always going to be an issue.
It's always
It's
gonna be an
always
issue. It's always going to be an issue, but you do get your own space a bit more.
Yeah.
I think.
I think those are really all four really hopeful things, and I think they're probably quite universal. So one of the things I think talking a lot to young people that I think has been a positive from my observation is that it's made loneliness less taboo. Like we always associate loneliness as this very negative thing, and I think it's made it okay to say that, and not only to say that I feel lonely, but actually really analyse loneliness. Yeah. So Abby, for you, how has it changed your attitude towards friendships and friends and socialising in general?
I think we as a friendship group, we check up more on each other because we all know like we've been alone during lockdown. Coming out of it, a lot of different people had different mental health problems, they were facing different things. So now it's like we're more aware that, you know, different people could have felt like this. And so we're checking up more on each other, checking if everyone's fine, like, you know, just a little text helps. Socializing, like I said, like putting more importance on actually meeting up, talking, catching up. Because I feel like over lockdown, because we weren't seeing each other as much, we had to like actively text someone to check up on them.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, I see you and you seem fine, okay, good. It was more like, I need to actually text you and be like, hey, how are you doing? And then
and did you kind of, you know, dig into it if you thought someone actually was saying they're okay and they're not? Did you press them, do you think?
I don't ever think it's like right to pressurize someone into it. If I feel like that, I'll be like, you know, I'm here to talk to you, if anything, just like anything. Or like, it doesn't have to be with me, you can talk to anyone. But just like letting them know that you're there for them to talk to, that helps. Like, I'll be like, you know, you can just call me whenever, you can text me whenever. But obviously, I don't think it's right to like be like, I don't think you're okay, like tell me. Because some people might just be having like a bad day or like, you know, not feeling like they want to talk, and I can't just be there like, no, you don't seem fine, like tell me what's wrong. So yeah, if I do feel like someone's not great, I'll be like, you know, you're doing good. And if they're like, yeah, they're fine, then I'll be like, okay, that's cool.
Okay, yeah, I think that's
But if they're like telling me that, you know, they're not fine, then I'll be there to like listen to them, obviously.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on how's friendships, sort of, does it change? How do you interact with your friends and your friendship group?
I think my friendships have definitely strengthened. Like, over lockdown, I think you really discovered the people who actually want to be friends with you, just from who reached out to you, just from who actually took the effort to spoke to you. Because even doing that, you know, I knew some people who just completely did not touch their phone and just went completely off everything because, you know, it got too much for them, obviously. And then some people would just do it all the time. And, you know, you really notice those people who actually just took the effort just to text you or call you, message you. And for that, you know, I really focus on those people for me. And so I learned to really strengthen those friendships.
So do you feel like you almost sort of slightly reevaluated who was a really,
100%.
you know, a sort of valuable friend and who wasn't? Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So Bobby, like as our male in the group, see how like not being insensitive, but so do you you know, how did friendship change for you? Particularly, I mean, I think sometimes, maybe stereotypically speaking, but boys and men can sometimes be slightly more reluctant to sort of say they're not okay or reach out. So, I mean, how did it change and feel for you?
I definitely fit into that category.
Do you?
Yeah, 100%. That I have to give my friends so much credit throughout lockdown because I was awful.
Really?
Like I did not text anyone. I did. If they got back to it, like if they would message me, it would take me 2 or 3 days to get back to them.
But so why? Is it
Because
you don't mind me asking?
No, of course, yeah. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I think that was where I was. We were in isolation. I was isolating. I just didn't have the energy.
Yeah.
I know that's probably a really bad excuse.
No, I mean, do you feel like you were struggling a bit? Like
Yeah, I think looking back on it, definitely.
Yeah.
That I wasn't who I was today, but like who I am today. But like I wasn't. I was. Everyone was someone completely different to who they were today, and for me, I just became really introverted.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak to anyone. And then when I did get back to my mates, they would get back instantly.
Yeah.
And because they're always on their phone, and that was what they were doing throughout their lockdown.
They were looking for the blue
They
ticks.
were, yeah. And I felt like then I had to talk, and I did. I would want to talk to my friends because they're my friends and I love them. But I did feel almost pressurised to talk.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that balance, what you're
Yeah,
saying.
pretty much
Yeah.
what you were saying.
And Ariana, because you are not a lady who minds talking.
No, I actually think I'm quite shy. I think friendship was really hard because I felt like what you're both saying, because I felt like I wanted to check on my friends, but everyone was like, hi, how are you doing? What do you mean, how am I doing? I did nothing. I woke up, I ate, I watched Netflix, and I went back to bed. Like, there's nothing to tell you because no one's going anywhere. And it made friendship feel really forced because you usually have things to talk about because you go out and do stuff. And then it made my friends feel bad. Like, it made them like reevaluate whether I still liked them. And I was like, no, of course I still like you. It's just, we haven't done anything. And I didn't know,
Nothing to talk
and
to you about.
I physically have nothing to talk to you about unless you would like to talk about the weather, you know, or the news. Like, there was just nothing to talk
You could have
about.
talked about lust stuff.
Oh my God, no, my friends don't read, but now we've all started watching Euphoria, so now it's the
That's
new
a
thing.
big topic.
That's the new thing we all talk about. Every Sunday we all watch it together in the house.
Okay, we might get back to that. So just very briefly, because there's so much more to talk about. So you've all had a very different kind of conception of what support you feel like you need.
What support do you think is good that you feel like you need in reflection after this? Is it like texting, calling? I mean, what looks like good support to you?
I think knowing those people there in your life that are there for you. Like, I think that was so important for me to actually recognise and kind of learn, is that I began to, now in my head, I know those people that are just there for me and that are there for me for life.
Amazing.
And will support me through anything, and that I can go to them in any point of crisis, when I'm the happiest, when I'm the lowest, and they'll just be there for me. I think having that like strength around you, it just helps me throughout my whole life. Like, that I know.
And those are really good ride or die friends.
Exactly.
How about you? What felt like good support for you?
I feel
and
like-
now and going forward.
Yeah, I feel like it's similar to Sam. I like friends, like good friends. Obviously, we come across a lot of different people, but like knowing who's actually there for you and who's pretending to be there for you is like important. But it's hard to like recognize, obviously. And I don't like to just judge them and be like, yeah, I don't think you're actually there for me. But having like that group of friends who you can definitely rely on, I think is really helpful. Like, to know, you know, they won't judge you if you need to talk about anything, and like you can go to them or talk to them about anything, any of your problems. I think that's really important because I feel like it's always better to talk out how you feel, whatever it is, even if it does seem like we're overly exaggerating in our heads. When you talk it out, it does help a lot. I feel like when I talk out my problems, I find myself being able to figure out solutions for it, which then helps me. And it kind of feels like I'm literally getting rid of the baggage in my head.
Could you do that before? Do you feel like you've got a kind of almost like an emotional articulacy maybe that you didn't prior because of this support network that you developed?
I feel like there were points where I wasn't able to do that without the support. And also, like, over lockdown, I also think not just like the support outside of me, but like my own, like, kind of like supporting yourself. I feel like I learnt ways to also look after myself.
Independent.
Yeah, independently, because obviously I was at home, I wasn't seeing people as much. and I learned like a lot of like different self-care things, and like that's still helping me now because I know how to like look after myself if I am in the state where I'm like going through like a really bad day or something. I know what I can do at the end of the day to like try and get up from it. During lockdown, like I started like writing down my emotions and like writing down solutions for like all my different problems, and seeing it on paper really helped me. So nowadays, when I do get really stressed or something, sometimes I just like take my like time out for myself without anyone, just write down everything in my head, kind of read over it myself and be like, okay, like these are my problems, but I can get through it. And I think that helps. So I think not only just having like a really good support system outside, I think it's really important to like, you know, have those habits within you. And I think lockdown really helped me like build that up.
Internal.
Yeah, like internal support, yeah.
How about you, Ayana?
I think it's the same thing. I think knowing that you have people there to talk to is always just really nice. Like knowing you have friends who are always going to be there for you, but also knowing when to get real support, because I think as much as I would love to talk to my friends about everything, there's only so much things that my friends are equipped to deal with, because well, all my friends are also 20, you know, they're not a counsellor and they're not a therapist. And I think lockdown also taught me like when to reach out for real help and when to just talk to my friends. And also the same thing like Abby was saying, like just to figure out how to deal with my own problems without having to like freak myself out, because I actually had to like sit in my own problems for the first time. There's nowhere else to go, there's nowhere to escape. I was kind of sitting in my brain, it felt like, and just learning how to deal with it by journaling and also just getting actual support. I think that helped a lot.
And I think that's a really important thing, that sometimes it is just too much and too much for your peers.
Yeah.
How about you, Bobby?
Again, just talking about it, like getting it all out, ranting probably. Oh my God, my girlfriend does that for me.
But did you? Like, I'm going to challenge you on that, because did you manage to do that because you had that very internalised stuff? So was that later or?
That was definitely later on. At the very start, no. I don't think I didn't deal with it very well at all. I did internalise everything, and I found it very hard to then, if anyone asked me what was wrong or are you okay, so yeah, I'm fine. Just same as everyone else.
No, and I think that's really important. I think those three things about kind of internalised sort of independent care, you know, reaching out, friend networks, and also external, more professional stuff, I think is really important. So Bobby, I'm actually going to direct this to you, because you're the one out of the four who's actually in work during the pandemic. So we won't stay on this for too long, because then I want to talk about education. But how did you, because you were actually going to work during the pandemic, weren't you?
Yeah.
And how did you find that, especially in the empty, weird, post-apocalyptic streets, like going to work? I mean, was that a strange experience?
Mental, because I didn't work in London because it was shut. You couldn't get into it. But just before we actually went into a national lockdown, where everyone was sort of like locked down and isolating themselves, it was dead. Like it was.
And was that spooky?
It was so
unnerving?
weird. It was so weird because like me and like a colleague were going like, so how many people do you think we're going to get today? And we were guessing like 5, 6, and we were often wrong. It was often like 1 or 2. But going in knowing that we could go into a national lockdown any day, and we were almost counting down the days, going, do you think we'll be in work tomorrow?
Yeah, and do you think, just because obviously it's a very big question, but do you think if we have another lockdown, do you think that there's a real nervousness about young people about, you know, dealing with work again? Do you feel prepared if we had to go into another lockdown?
No.
So that's something we really need to be thoughtful about.
100%. If we went into another lockdown, I don't think we wouldn't get the help that especially young people that are trying to make a living and do what they love and get into anything that they do want to do, for that to come down on them a second time, like in the space of like 3 or 4 years, I think that would crush and hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Myself included, 100% myself included, that would hurt a lot.
No, and absolutely, and I think that those kind of dreams and ambitions and it feel
I
like
think
they're being compressed.
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of the time, or sometimes people won't be able to bounce back. If it happened again,
I agree.
I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to bounce back.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And Summer, because we spoke over dinner, you miss such vital, fundamental, never going to get back the back parts of your education. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I went into lockdown at the end of my GCSEs, so I didn't sit my GCSEs. and then I went to a new school for the start of my A levels. So it was a whole transition period for me, and that was really difficult because I was just like on the peak of like revision and working, and I was ready. You know, it's like that
Doing it.
like, right. I was like, it was just a sprinting part, right? Like towards the end, and then it just all came crashing down essentially. And in many ways, you know, I don't hate the fact I didn't sit my GCSEs because I, you know, like who wants to, but it kind of took out a very vital part of my education for the fact that I'm now sitting my A levels this summer, and I have never sat exams before.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what that experience is like.
So you almost feel completely under. It's
Exactly.
almost like the dress rehearsal was taken away.
Exactly.
From you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like-
Exactly.
And I mean, psychologically and emotionally, you've spent, let's say, 12 years since you were 4 gearing up to this
Exactly.
GCSE point, which every young person in education is kind of geared up for.
Yeah.
How did it make you feel?
In many ways, it was horrible because the school that I was in, I'd grown up since I was like 3 years old, and I'd left it, and it was in the middle of COVID. I never went back. I haven't been back. I haven't been able to because of COVID. So like, it was such a sad ending for me because I didn't see any of my friends. I saw them on results day, but that was really it. And it was a kind of, we didn't get a proper leavers day. It was just all up in the air. And that, I think, for many people, their last days of school was just
Crushing.
yeah.
No, I think that was, and that sort of sense of lack of closure, I think
Yeah,
is
exactly.
awful. Abby, what did you lose, and how did that impact you?
Yeah, so I was in year 12 when we first went into
Oh, that's
lockdown.
That's
So
bad.
yeah, it was bad because obviously like we just started A levels, and like we were like building up to like mocks, and then like halfway through we just had to stop. And then we had to change into like online lessons. But then because we were in year 12, it wasn't like it wasn't like we had to keep working because we have like exams next month. But we did still have to do the work. But then obviously it was hard to stay motivated. And then in year 13 again, I think we went into lockdown. So then I didn't end up doing my actual A levels. But I went to a grammar school who like did a load of tests. So they'd be like, oh, when you're back, like, 2 weeks later, we'd give you a test, and we might use them for your grades, we might not. So it was like really
Totally
uncertain.
unknown,
Yeah, and like the teachers, like, I remember really well where they basically like moved our mocks because we were in we were in lockdown and everything. And we'd be like, would these tests matter? And the teacher would be like, oh, we don't know. And then we'd be like, should we start revising? Like, what topics do we do? And they're like, wait till the topic lists are out, and then you can revise. And then like some of them would be like, I think you should revise because we might do your tests, we might still have them, we might not. And like, so it was really stressful because we're obviously at home, we're not like in school getting that like real life support. And at the same time, like we don't know if we're doing exams or not. And my school wasn't really helping, like just changing their exams and being like, yeah, so we might do these mini exams, which are gonna like be like A levels, but with reduced content, but we're not gonna tell you what the content is just yet. So I'm like, am I revising something that's not gonna ever come up?
Yeah.
Like, am I really wasting my like brain energy right now?
Yeah.
And like, that actually, in fact, like towards the end, so they gave us like a whole list, and then they decided to like cut it down. So then obviously some people had like revised those bits, and then others hadn't. So like, it was kind of like is it the topics you revised that are going to come up or not? And it was just, it was so frustrating.
So almost in a sense, like, do you not your year group, but collectively as these poor, guinea pigs of chaos? Do you feel like you were kind of almost all banding together to support each other in this chaotic, not knowing where you
Yeah,
are?
definitely. There were a whole load of like new petitions for like reducing content, or like, we don't want this, we don't want that. I'm pretty sure we only moved our mocks because of someone making a petition. They were gonna like make us do like straight when we're back, and then like someone did a petition like, we're in lockdown, we're finding it hard to revise, you guys need to like reduce the content or like move it. And that's only when like our school decided to like be like, okay, yeah, we might move it like by a week or like 2, and we're like, okay, thank you, at least that helped a bit. But yeah, it was really stressful because it was like, we're not doing actual A levels, but our school was still doing exams.
Sure.
So we were still doing A levels, just not official A levels.
Just constant.
Yeah, so it still felt like I was doing actual exams, but like these felt like they matter even more.
Yeah.
Because if I had done A levels, only like my final grades would matter. But they were kind of like giving us exams left, right, and center, being like, these might matter. Like, we might use these if your final tests don't happen. So it felt more pressurized because I had to do well in every exam. And like, I wouldn't know, because sometimes like when it does get too much, I'd want to chill and tell myself like, let me just take a break. But then it'll be hard because it'll be like, this might matter. And if it does matter, like, this is big because it's the grades I'm going to need to go into university. So it's really stressful in that way. I feel like it just added on to the stress of already being in a global pandemic. I feel like we forgot that because we were so like overridden with like academic stress. We're like, oh yeah, there's a whole virus going around as well. It was just like really bad, yeah.
So Ayana, you like millions of young people. You were at university, and can you describe a bit about, you know, you were actually locked in halls at one point, weren't you?
We got, I mean, that's actually a different story. We got coronavirus and our whole building got it at the same time, like our whole block. So like, I lived in a courtyard and there were like 9 different blocks and everyone had COVID at the same time. And they basically the original plan was to lock us all in our flats. And we're like, what if there's a fire? Like, you can't lock us in the building just because we have COVID. But after hearing your story, I feel like I should have had something better to say, because when I used to have online lectures, I just used to turn my laptop off and just mute myself and just continue with my day. And I felt and all the lectures used to be like talking, and it was just really bad because there was such little participation. And university is already that time where you go from being told what to do every single day to basically having a free pass to do whatever you want.
So I think education is an area, I think university, it was felt that there was a lot of challenges. So thinking about like kind of, you know, now we've emerged into this and sort of through it, and thinking about kind of, we talked about personal care, and we've really improved personal care, and you kind of found this kind of sense of, you know, almost like this independence, and you've been much better communicators, and you've been, you know, it felt like it's really kind of realigned your friendship groups and made you feel like, you know, there's some friends who are really good, sort of probably friends for life. So what else has it kind of changed about your kind of, you know, your day-to-day lifestyle and I guess your personality? So I'm going to ask you first, Bobby. So do you feel that maybe it shifted your, I guess, your kind of character and your behaviour? I mean, like, there's lots of people, I think there was a whole ongoing jokes about it was great for introverts and not so great for extroverts. So did you, was that any experience that you had?
I feel like I've definitely, like, post-COVID and pre-COVID me were two different people, I believe. That I don't know if I've become more introverted. I feel like I probably have. I do also feel like I'm regaining that extrovert that I once was. But I met my girlfriend through lockdown. So I think that, yeah, so I think that was definitely one of the only good things I got off her. Yeah. That obviously has changed me, but I just feel like I am where I was when I was 17, and yeah, I'm 3 years older, but I feel like I'm also 3 years behind.
So you
I feel like I've got an awful lot to catch up on.
But does that also make you feel that you kind of cherish time a bit more and you don't waste time?
Yeah. I mean, time with like my friends, and time with my girlfriend, and time with my family, and just time being out in London or out anywhere. I appreciate it in the way that I didn't appreciate it before. And
yeah, so Ayana, how do you feel that but let's at this point nearly a 3-year kind of ordeal. I mean, how has it kind of has it changed you fundamentally in any particular way? The way you interact, the way you kind of go about things, your character?
I feel like it definitely has. I feel like I've always been a bit uptight and a bit anxious, and I feel like COVID made that even worse. Like, I do politics at uni, but I had to stop reading the news, which is like something our lecturers make us do all the time, because I just got anxiety like every single time I read the news, because there were so many different articles, and all of my mum, like 3 of my mum's siblings are doctors, so they would all send their different like thesis on like the different strains. I'm like, why are you sending this to our family group chat in a pandemic about what you think what it's going to look like in a few years? Like, that's just not ideal.
Any major changes that you felt?
For me, like, my mindset changed a lot, because I think during lockdown was one of my like lowest points in my life, where I got really stressed, and like at a point, obviously that was like over a long period of time, and at a point I was like, you know, I need to kind of get through this. And then I think I started building up like this better, positive mindset, and I feel like now that's made me much more carefree, which nice. I think is obviously good.
That's really good.
Yeah, but I feel like obviously I had to go through that bad experience to build this positive mindset up.
I like that a lot. And Summer, what about you?
A little bit controversial, but I think, I don't know, in so many ways, I will always love that period of my life of lockdown. And I'm incredibly grateful for it, just for the fact that it was such a point of self-analysis and self-growth, and I learned so much about myself because I was just with myself all the time.
That's lovely.
And for that, I'll just be so grateful because I just learned the kind of person I wanted to be and who I was truly, because I was just by myself all the time. So for that, I love that period of my life.
Oh, that's a lovely place, and we're almost done. So we're going to go up this way, and there's literally one sentence, because I know you all like to talk, as I do. Now we're coming out of lockdown, and it feels like there is this new normal. What's something you're really looking forward to doing, or feeling, or experiencing in the next 6 months?
I think appreciating a lot more what I didn't before. Yeah.
Absolutely. Abby?
Living more in the present.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Living in the present. Yeah, because I think we can obsess more about the future and
Yeah.
past. I think present.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a lot deeper than my answer. I was going to say going on holiday. I'm really looking. No, but I take that back. I'm looking forward to the future. I feel like that's a better answer.
I'm literally. I want to go away. I want to travel, and like.
There's nothing wrong with that. We haven't been able to travel. It's a really exciting thing. It's been, as ever, an absolute thank you very much for hosting us, and it's always a pleasure, and it's a real privilege of mine to work for the Mix and represent the Mix. But thank you very much to Summer, Abby, Iona and Bobby, who've been absolutely fantastic, and thank you very much for coming.